Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today on this Thanksgiving Eve edition of the Rockies Insider, at a time in which it might be hard to be grateful when you are sitting smack dab in the bottom of the NL West. We got the boys from Affected by Altitude, Purple Rose, Skyler Timmins, and Evan Lang. Skyler, one word to describe the Blake Snell news on Tuesday night. All right.
Stinky.
Oh, they had more. Okay, stinky. Yes. And Evan Lang also from Purple Row. 4-letter word. Did that come out of your mouth, Evan, when you saw the news on Tuesday night about Blake Snell's 5-year, $182 million contract?
Let's say rage.
Oh, different 4-letter word. All right.
This is a family show, Patrick.
That's everyone's around the fireplace right now. There might be chestnuts involved in this viewing experience because the Los Angeles Dodgers have just made it that much harder and that much likelier to win back-to-back World Series, which would be the first since 1999 and 2000 for the New York Yankees, by signing two-time Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell to a 5-year, $182 million contract. Comes with a $52 million signing bonus. And now you've got a reunion of sorts between a pair of 2020 rotation mates, 2020 World Series teammates from the Tampa Bay Rays, Tyler Glasnow and Blake Snell. Skyler, I mean, it's been 24 hours really since this news has broken. What are your takeaways from this right now? You knew the Dodgers were going to do something, so we were bound to feel like this, I guess, at some point, right?
Yeah, if anybody that's not a Dodgers fan probably isn't very happy, because it's, again, just the thing we've come to expect, where they're just going to go swing over the fences for the biggest names on the market in free agency. It's what they did a year ago, dropping $1 billion on some of the top talent. They've done it years past. They're going to do it again. The thing I think that's getting everybody is the word deferral that we keep hearing about, of deferred money in these contracts that the Dodgers keep signing. That's what's, I think, annoying most people. It's annoying me for sure, but it's what I've gathered, seeing what people's reactions is, it's the deferrals that they're not happy with, the way the money works with these contracts.
Sure, and any team can defer contracts. Like, let's keep this in mind. Like, this isn't something that's exclusive to the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have not found a loophole in MLB's collective bargaining agreement in any way, but they've got a lot of different advantages for the simple fact that they can pay for the big name guys, but also even when they can't, even when there might be a bit of a haircut, they are such a desirable destination, I think, for so many players. Evan, what was your takeaway from this, and how much are you hating the word deferral?
I mean, what really bugs me about it, so the Dodgers now have almost $1 billion in deferred salary across all of their star players. A lot of that is Shohei Ohtani, but now some, I know Mookie Betts has some deferred money. Blake Snell has some deferred money. And the most common sentiment I see online, especially on Blue Sky and other online baseball spaces, is, oh, well, if your team's not doing this, then you need to blame your owner and all of that stuff. And it's like, I do get that to an extent it's on the owner of your team to spend money, but no other team in baseball has the financial largesse, as someone put it, has the resources to do all of this deferred money. Not every team has, the backups in order to say, oh, they'll just defer all of that money. And not every team is going to be able to convince players to have that contract deferred. Not every team is going to be able to load up on signing bonuses and things like that. And if you compare it, the Rockies have historically been middle of the pack payroll wise, but they've spent it incredibly poorly, but they've spent. But now, because there's no TV deal, a lot of the money has dried up. The Rockies would never be able to go, well, we're going to give you $52 million in a signing bonus, and then we're going to defer the millions of extra dollars on your contract through when I'm going to be old and gray. It's not a thing that other teams can do. And I'm tired of people acting like it is, I guess, because it always comes up. Oh, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers with their unlimited money and their unlimited resources and the ability to make something out of nothing while also pulling in the highest name free agents and pulling off all of these trades and blah, blah, blah. I'm sick of it.
And despite
I hate the Dodgers so much.
And well, it's funny because despite the fact that you're right, they do have unlimited resources, and we're really saying a lot of the same things like deferral and signing bonuses. These are just fancy ways of saying they have money to spend, because I don't think it really matters that there's $1 billion in deferred money going out. It's just their contracts of their players, $300 million salaries, payroll for an entire season, that in and of itself. So whether it's money paid in the future or whether it's money this season, they've got a lot of money to spend. And despite all of that, they have not won a ton of World Series. Yeah, the one in 2020, take it for what it's worth. Was it a Mickey Mouse championship? That was a regular season. They were the best team in 2020. It might not have been as great as any other team winning a World Series during a 162 game slate, but 2 World Series in 5 years. But then you got to go all the way back to 1988. So despite the fact that teams like the Dodgers, like the Yankees, the Red Sox are going to get back in the hunt, they're going to start spending again. Despite the fact that teams like that are spending a ton of money, it doesn't actually guarantee a championship. And I think that is part of the beauty, as it were, of baseball. Skyler, are you getting the sense, and there's been a lot of discussion about it online, thinking that Major League Baseball needs a harder salary cap? It has one. It's a very soft cap, but it needs not only just a salary cap, but also a salary floor to encourage teams at the bottom of the game to spend a little bit more money.
It's hard because first force we were like, yeah, put a salary cap so it can stop a team like the Dodgers. But like you're saying, even then, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win championships, and it's not necessarily going to curb. It could even curb spending, because how many teams are even close to the luxury taxes that we presently have in the game? If you put a hard salary cap, it's not going to make the Rockies spend more money. It's not going to earn them more money. And same with kind of the salary floor. As nice as that would be, that's also a hard one, because then you're maybe spending money on guys that aren't necessarily worth it, so to speak, to bring your salary up. So it's just kind of empty money to hit a status quo. It's like, I can see the arguments for it, but there's also those arguments against it, which also makes sense. So it's a tough one to figure out, and that'll be an interesting one when the next CBA comes around in a couple of years. But for me right now, I'm still at that. There's got to be other ways they can get around it, but it's really just the disparity in money that teams actually have and just resources available. It's the hard part about even in the playing field.
Yeah, talking with a great member of the Rockies community, Nate. I think he's Rocktober 19 on Twitter. You guys are saying yes. Yeah. So Nate, I was texting with him, and it's like, hey, what are the odds of there being some kind of salary floor? And none. There really isn't going to be any chance of something like that happening. Manny in the chat, happy Thanksgiving. What's going on, buddy? Appreciate you. Still need to know where I can get that City Connect Trevor Story jersey. Come on, dude. Let me know. But NBA, NFL, they've got the cap. They've got a lot of parity, and there's a system in place where the owners are sharing with the players, and they've worked that out. And baseball, the first of the major sports to even have a players union, there's just such a bad history that both owners and players have, that I don't know how they could ever come together and say, well, this is good for both of us, because it is. Just like deferred money is good for both players and teams in different situations. A salary cap and a hard salary floor would be good for owners and players, but it's about agreeing as to who is making out a little bit better. So the players are going to be saying, yeah, we'll do a salary floor, because we know that owner Dick Monfort and maybe some small market teams would like to be a little bit more competitive by creating that cap. Well, us as the Players Association, what else are we going to get? Since you owners are now benefiting from this situation, and now we can't have players maybe making $400, $500, $600 million contracts because of the salary cap. What else do we get? conversely, the owners are going, hey, we're going to be spending a lot more money now because teams like the Marlins and the A's, wherever they're at, assuming it's on planet Earth somewhere, but those small market clubs, they're going to now have to spend. So because of that, hey, players, what are you going to give us, the owners? So I don't know how something like that would ever happen. If it would take maybe the right commissioner to really bridge the gap, like David Stern was able to do in the NBA. So I don't know if that's something that, we'll ever see, but it certainly would be something that, in many ways are going to benefit both sides, especially the middle class of free agents or middle class of baseball players. I know you guys discussed it a lot on Affected by Altitude, the moves that the Rockies made for Brendan Rodgers and Cal Quantrill, non-tendering those guys, as well as numerous other guys around baseball, because there are always cheaper options. So it's wild to think in a world in which a guy's making $5.5 million, you're going, I can actually get a guy a little bit cheaper than that. Now I'm going to go pay a former MVP $30 million, but I want to save $1 million, $2 million on my second base situation. So that's just the economics of baseball. Evan, are you hoping that one day in your lifetime you see somewhat of a salary floor?
See, it's tricky because I do support a salary floor, but at the same time, it would have to be very, tightly regulated and very carefully implemented, because otherwise your cheapskate owners are going to do the bare minimum and maybe fudge the numbers a little bit with some contracts for some lower level guys just to get to that floor and say, okay, we're at the floor, we're good. Honestly, you brought up, the NBA. I do sometimes wonder if maybe the better option for baseball would be a similar format where you have your maxes and your super maxes, and then you have, your other guys, your middle class, your two-way contracts, stuff like that. It's tough because one, monetary wise, you've got the complete collapse, the total implosion of the regional sports networks, and that is harming a lot of teams. It's harming the Rockies. It's harmed other teams, and that's going to have to be figured out first. But at the same time, there is no way the players union would go for a salary cap, even though we probably do need one. And it's highly doubtful that unless there are major concessions, the owners would go for a salary floor. And I think either way, 2026 is going to see us with a very bitter lockout that I don't think is going to be resolved particularly quickly. So we will see.
I feel good to know that I wasn't the one that brought up another work stoppage possibly coming. But you're right. You bring up a good point too about the salary floor and what some owners would do, because there's going to be some kind of penalty, and it'll probably be like loss of draft picks. I don't even know what the penalty would be. I've not run my head through this practice of doing it, and I imagine that might be certainly some good off-season content. But you talk about finagling the floor. I played in the last year that I played fantasy baseball, where it was a salaried league, where it was NL only, at $240 to spend on players. All the superstar guys went for $30 and up, and you could hold on to players for multiple years. It was dynasty. There was one owner who was very inactive, didn't know what he was doing, and in his final pick, he did not allocate his money properly. He had about $40 left remaining when we were getting down to the final guys on the roster. And because you could start off with a player and say $1, and slowly you get more and more, and you see how much somebody would end up paying. He went in right away with his big budget with one guy left, and he picked backup catcher AJ Ellis for $32 for no reason. Now, if AJ Ellis would have had a great season, you would have said, hey, you know what? This might be a guy I want to keep around as a really cheap backup catcher for $1 for the next season. He couldn't even do that because he was paying him $32 million or $32 in this fantasy league. So you're right. Those cheap guys are going to say, oh, he's a good clubhouse guy. He works within the community. So, we want to make sure that him and his family are taken care of. You're absolutely right. That is something that some of those cheapskate owners would have. The point I want to bring up with Snell going to the Dodgers, again, we knew the Dodgers were going to be in on some of these big time free agents. Blake Snell is not the best pitcher out there. He's also not the only pitcher out there. So anyone that, your team missed out on the Snell conversations or the Snell signing, there's still Corbin Burns. There's still Max Fried. So those guys are out there. Either one of you, do you think the Dodgers are still in play for someone like a Juan Soto?
Well, that's the thing that we've come to learn with the Dodgers is a lot of other teams would sign like a Blake Snell or one of these other guys to a big deal, and that's their big splash of the offseason. For the Dodgers, that's chump change. And we saw that last year where they get Shohei Ohtani, and we're like, okay, no, that huge record-breaking contract. What's that? They're paying him $2 million a year? Uh-oh. And then they get Yamamoto, and then they get Teoscar Hernandez, and they do all this other stuff. So they're an evergreen threat to get anybody really they want. And they're always going to be in the conversation. And so I think that's what we've come to expect. They're always going to be in on guys if it makes sense for them.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the Blake Snell money-wise is the same amount of money the Rockies chose to pay Chris Bryant.
Yeah, that I did notice that was that was the exact number. One less year, but still, you're right. That was a strange number, and I also found it to be interesting. I had to look it up because obviously a lot has been made this past season about the 3 MVPs at the top of the Dodgers lineup in Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman. Well, now they add a Cy Young Award winner. So I had to look it up. Amongst active players, there's 31 active players that won either the MVP or Cy Young. And I'm picking those two because you're either the best overall player, usually the best hitter, or the most valuable hitter, and the best pitcher. 31 former MVP and Cy Young Award winners that are active. 10 are free agents right now, but 21 are on a roster. Only 4 clubs have more than one. The Rangers in Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Atlanta with Ronald Acuna Jr., and recently Chris Sale. There was a third team that I'm drawing blank. Oh, the Yankees. They've got 3. Garrett Cole, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, and now the Dodgers. Adding Blake Snell, the 4th former MVP and Cy Young Award winner, and he even has 2 Cy Young Awards, 1 in each league. So they have definitely become a powerhouse. You're right. I don't think they probably will sign Juan Soto because he's never won an MVP award. That logic is sound, isn't it?
Sure.
It's just I do legitimately detest that they can make all of these big splashes and then just still potentially not even be done.
Mm-hmm. And it's not only that with the Dodgers, that powerhouse is they're really good with the money and drawing in these free agents, but it's because they do everything else well as well along with it of developing, drafting. They do everything right. Even last year where their rotation was awful and injuries just hindered them all year in that rotation, they still managed to limp along to getting a World Series trophy. And so it's just frustrating when if you're just not a fan of the Dodgers, you're like, man, I hate these guys. They're so good at everything. Like, can there just be a flaw about them? Just an absolute glaring flaw that will come back to bite them. But instead, we just kind of watch them storm through the National League West, and the rest of Major League Baseball is one of the best teams.
How I feel about the Dodgers is how people used to feel about the Yankees, except the Dodgers don't have all the World Series titles.
Yeah, that's a very fair comparison where the Yankees were that evil empire where you name a player, they were going to get that guy. And really since then, I don't think any team really had that kind of a run. Even in the early to mid 2000s, there was a stretch with Giambi and Mark Teixeira, and those guys, they weren't part of that late 90s group, yet the Yankees were still able to go and get everybody, Johnny Damon, you name it. And yeah, the Dodgers are kind of, in that class, but they're also such a good organization that they don't need to have 7 to 8 former MVPs because they can build guys up. And they can develop their own players, and they can acquire young players as well via trade. So all avenues are open to them. And again, there are other teams that have that ability, or a lot of other teams that they can check off most of those boxes, and yet they don't do it well enough. So it's just that they are impervious almost to making any kind of mistakes. And even when they do, they've got money to patch that over in a certain way. The interesting thing that I did see, I think it was from Spot Rack or Spotrack, depending on how you want to pronounce it, about the Blake Snell situation in San Francisco. The Giants by signing him last year. Now, they got 104 innings of an ERA right around 3, so he was good when healthy. It took him a while to get going. He shouldn't have those issues with a normal offseason. But the Giants spent $32 million on Blake Snell. They gave up a third-round pick since Snell did reject a qualifying offer from the Padres, and they lost $500,000 in bonus pool money. It's no reason why the Giants ownership decided to opt for a new voice in their front office with Buster Olney. No, Buster Posey. They gave him an opportunity. I'm a little sleep deprived, guys. I tell you, there's going to be a couple of times where I misspeak. I was thinking Tampa Bay Royals at one point instead of Rays. It might end up being the Kansas City Rays by the time the Rays end up figuring out their crazy situation. And then also in further Giants news, Brandon Crawford on Wednesday calls it a career 2-time World Series winner, 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove Award winner, and 5,000-time home run hitter against the Colorado Rockies.
I forget that he was a Cardinal this past year.
Right?
I think everybody did.
He should have called it called it quits already and just spend his career one team. Now we had to sully it and go play one more year somewhere else. But
it'll make for a great answer on Immaculate Grid.
Very true. Yeah, and Joey Votto, despite the fact that there is video evidence of him in Blue Jays uniforms, never officially, playing in the majors with the Blue Jays. So he can have his cake and eat it too. He can say, hey, I did represent my country with Toronto, but at the same time, in the majors only with the Cincinnati Reds. So the NL West is alive and well. Rockies Insider here with the boys from Purple Row, Evan Lang and Skyler Timmins. And we probably should give a little gratitude. I know it can be hard when your team has lost 100 games in back-to-back seasons and are arguably hurtling towards another 100-loss campaign. That's fodder for the rest of the offseason. But there's a lot to be thankful for, I think. I came up with a list of like 8 things, but I wanted to pick your guys' brains, whether it's what you might be thankful for as a Rockies fan, what you might be thankful for as a baseball fan in general. Now is just a good time to give thanks because we're alive. We're on the right side of the dirt, as it were, and things could always be worse. That phrase rings a bell. Things could always be worse. I think the Rockies, they really should embrace Team 27 because I believe they were technically the 27th team before the Marlins got their franchise. So they're Team 27, 27th in Major League Baseball history. And in terms of standings, in terms of rankings, in various metrics and various statistics, they're usually 27th. So I feel like that is a little bit fitting. Try that on for size. Tell me what you think about that. And tell me something you're thankful for.
I'll let Evan go first.
I mean, wouldn't it be 26 if we're counting the Rockies before the Marlins, and then there were 2 1998 expansion teams?
Oh, Evan, math is, it's okay. So the 30th team would be 30, and the other team that expanded in 1998 would be 29, which means the early 90s teams would be 28 and 27 because there were 26 teams in MLB. Are you giving me the middle finger secretly? I think so.
No, you can't see by my nameplate. I was miming counting on my fingers. Look, I don't math good, okay? Math makes my thinker box feel bad. I don't math.
You got something to be thankful for? Come on, you're a guy that does a good job of trying to find the silver lining when it's there. And you know what? You will, give bad credit when bad credit is due and be critical. But you do a good job, I think, of finding some of those literal and figurative silver linings with the Rockies. What's one of those things for you right now?
I'm thankful for all the people that yell at me when I try and be positive about things. No, I had a bunch of joke negative answers like, oh, I'm thankful the season's finally over and all of that stuff. If we're going Rockies specific, I am thankful for a blossoming farm system that is finally starting to even out. Over the last several years, the Rockies farm system has been very lowly rated and very bottom heavy. Lots of guys in Fresno and Spokane. but now we're finally getting to the point where the talent is more evenly distributed across the 4 levels. I'm hoping the Isotopes will finally be good next year because they were the odd man out in 2024. But, national media recognizing the Rockies have a pretty darn good farm system with a lot of really interesting talent in it. And I'm appreciative for that because this was not a particularly fun season to watch almost every Rockies game, and yet I still did it. But what was really fun was following the minor leagues and watching a lot of those games. And even getting to see some rehab starts, like seeing Antonio Senzatela in Spokane or Herman Marquez in Fresno. That was cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one with the farm system because when you have a team that is struggling, when you have an organization that is struggling, you look to the farm for hope. And sometimes there's a couple guys you can feel good about. But I think, go back and look and, sometimes it can suck to be right. But look at 21 and 2022, even parts of 2020 when the team was on the downswing and looking like they were going to be falling on hard times. And there were a couple prospects, that you could feign and get excited about, but they didn't pan out. They didn't really work out. And now there's depth. That's the other piece too. It's not just a couple guys. There's a lot, and they're playing together, which was a recipe for success with that 2007 club that went on the deep run. And that 2007 club was still pretty much together in 2009. Same thing with 2017 and 2018. You had that Asheville team that won the South Atlantic League. A lot of those guys stuck around and played together, and you're seeing that success over the last couple years. Fresno, Spokane, Double-A, Hartford, those guys are on the precipice of making their debut. So now more than ever, you can legitimately feel good about the farm system and know it's not entirely all hype.
Mm-hmm.
That does make me miss the Asheville tourists, though.
It does. How about the New Britain Rockcats? I put that on my wish list for the holidays, the New Britain Rockcats hat, because that is the one affiliate I think that nobody ever remembers was associated with the Rockies. It was 1 year.
Yeah, well, because then they became the Hartford Yard Goats.
That's right.
Who are, I'm sorry, infinitely better in terms of branding.
Oh, yeah.
You mean the Bouncing Pickles?
No, I mean the Hartford Schoolboys.
All right, how about you, Skyler? What is something that you are thankful for this holiday season?
So this one does kind of come across as a joke answer, but I think for mediocrity, in the sense that I don't have to invest as much with the Rockies because I know the outcome. But a big part of it is just pouring you can take kind of the negative emotions you feel in just like life and how other things that are frustrating you. And then you can just direct that and pour it into this one thing. And it's very cathartic to just kind of rip on the Rockies or just be mad about the things they're doing. And so it's kind of a weird answer, but there is a thankfulness that I have for that mediocrity because it just kind of gives you something to focus on it and pour those bad feelings into. So then you can go about your life like, hey, it's much better than having to watch the Rockies. And then I suffer through watching them again and just rage at them. But it just kind of puts things in perspective or at least helps out in my day-to-day life where I have some I can direct kind of maybe negative feelings towards or whatever, pouring into that's just kind of this entity of baseball that means nothing. At the end of the day, it means nothing. But it's just something that's a cathartic thing from life.
And there's a safety in that, I think, when, I something I do a lot in my everyday life and my thinking is I think about the polar extremes, like what's the best case and what's the worst case. And when you're on one of those extremes, your front is facing one direction. So if things are as worse as they can be, you go, well, this sucks, but look at all the positive outcomes that can come after that, or look at, what's ahead of me, and same thing, vice versa. And so when your team is really bad, there is no, but what about Bo Nix? What about, and then what about it? What if that doesn't pan out? Now that's another year and it's more time that you've sunk in. It's that uncertainty, which is both, exciting and anxiety producing for, a lot of teams. And you know what, once in a while, when your team is really down bad, like you said, you can go, all right, I can get that out of my system. I'm done. I don't need to invest any more time. Let me put that energy somewhere else where maybe I do like what I get out of that. Anyway. Yeah, very well. I am thankful that the Rockies are not the Athletics. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful the Rockies are not the Sacramento Rockies or the West Sacramento Rockies. They're not the Las Vegas Rockies. They do have their own mountains and mountain ranges out there in Las Vegas. That just sounds awful, and it feels a million times worse. So again, things are bad. Rockies are down bad right now, but they are still the Rockies. They don't have a name change. They're not moving. They're not going anywhere. You know that next summer, despite how frustrated you might be at whatever their next move is going to be that you don't agree with, you're going to be able to go down to Coors Field. You're going to be able to go down the corner of 20th and Blake, even if it's only once a year. Even if you don't go in for a game, you're just going to drive by and you're going to look and think about the memories. That's the other part too with like old ballparks that get torn down is, oh, this was the spot where such and such happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if you can still visualize that, and with Coors Field still there, you can visualize like, yeah, I remember we normally would go in this gate, but for game 3 of the World Series in 2007, remember we had to go all the way around to this gate. Like there are those things that are still alive. Those ghosts are still there. They're not even ghosts yet, thankfully. So I would have to say I have to show some gratitude that the Rockies are not the Athletics.
Yeah, for every person who goes, oh, Dick Monfort is the worst owner in all of baseball or in all of professional sports, I ask those people to think about your John Fishers, your Stu Sternbergs, who the Rays just torpedoed their new stadium deal in St. Petersburg, and now a move is looking more and more likely. The A's are out of town after 60 plus years. Your Jeffrey Lorias, who killed the Montreal Expos, the Expos de Montreal, gone. But the Rockies are, at the very least, in it for the long term. And that's not something you can always say. They've signed a lease at Coors Field in 2017 for like 50 years following that. There's never a fear that the Rockies are going to be taken away.
Yeah,
that's
you
a
named
pain.
3 owners. You named 3 owners that are worse. So again, back to team 27, owner 27, maybe like, okay, but you're right. And look, when I talked to Dick Monfort, I don't want to say too much, but there wasn't a ton that was said off the record. But I'll say this: Dick Monfort loves being in Denver. He does not want to take the Rockies out of Denver, legitimately. So you're right, like that. Yeah. That is a big thing to be thankful for, because
that's one of the things that I'll give him is a dedication to Colorado. And losing a team is not a pain that I would wish upon anybody, because if you ask anyone who's lost their team across any of the sports, look at all those heartbroken, there weren't a ton of them, but there were some really dedicated Arizona Coyotes fans. And watching that last ever game in Arizona was heartbreaking. That is not something I would wish upon my worst enemy, is to have their team ripped away from them. And that's not something that we as Rockies fans really need to fear.
Yeah, that's definitely a positive one. With that, I'll take the next one too. I'm thankful that the Rockies aren't the Rays in a way, or rather I should say this. I'm thankful that the Rockies don't have a roof over Coors Field, or rather that they don't need a roof. We know weather is a non-factor at Coors Field in a way that it can be in Florida, in some other places north, but snow is not a major factor. Coors Field has millions of heating coils underneath the grass. They're the first stadium to do that, to trick Mother Nature and say, and maybe that's the curse of the Rockies. Mother Nature is cursing them to say, oh, okay, you want to make me grow grass for you in late March and in April so that things can look really nice. Okay, well then, I'm going to have your starting pitcher go out there in short sleeves and then it's going to snow on him. I think we all remember that one. But yeah, I'm definitely thankful that despite the fact that, yeah, we get usually one big dump of snow in May, there's not a ton of postponements in Colorado. We get wonderful views at Coors Field. So thankful for the weather, thankful for not having a roof and not needing a roof.
Also, there's something so dang pretty about a ballpark covered in snow. It's like when we're getting the photos from Coors Field in December and January of, the silent stadium covered in snow. Mwah, it's poetry right there. But also, if y'all remember, Larry Walker was a big fan of those heating coils. He would sometimes, when they had them on to test them, there's video of him like laying down on the grass and just like enjoying that it's all heated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should have thought to have asked Daniel Bard when he was walking around barefoot and connecting with the ground. I mean, I only saw him do it in the summertime, but yeah, that is something you could probably do in the winter with those heating coils. All right, what else have you guys got at a time in which I think some people need to be reminded in a way? And again, this is not a pro Rockies segment by any means. It's just for our own maybe mental health. Like, what do you do to still say you're thankful despite the fact you're also frustrated?
I think for me, and this is a big one, is I'm thankful that to live in an era with such incredible baseball players and just the best era of baseball. That you think of the players that we have. We have Shohei Ohtani, we have Mookie Betts, we have Juan Soto, any number of pitchers, and we have Freddie Freeman, all kinds of guys. We have the Dodgers. We have Aaron Judge. We've had exciting young players, exciting players throughout the league and doing historical things that probably are playing the best brand of baseball to date. And what an incredible opportunity and blessing and just miracle is we get to be in this era and enjoy it. Just like the people that got to enjoy Babe Ruth and Jackie Robinson, the greats back in the early days, we're getting to experience our own greats of the game in this day and age. And what an incredible time to be alive. We live at the same time as Shohei Ohtani. That's amazing.
Yeah, and we're not saying we lived at the same time as Babe Ruth. Who cares? That old hot dog eater.
He set his wife on fire.
It's about
Or Helen.
I don't know that story. Is that true?
No, it's
Oh,
on. So Ben Verlander on Twitter way back in the
we're
day.
good. We're gonna skip that. No, I do want to hear.
Posted something to the akin of like, everyone talks about Babe Ruth, but nobody talks about his poor wife Helen, and with like a bunch of fire emojis, because it's not true, but it was some sort of story like Babe Ruth either let his wife Helen die in a fire or started the fire that killed his. It's a whole thing.
It's weird.
Okay, all right.
It's really just making fun of It's really just making fun of Ben Verlander.
She did die in 1929, so he was still inactive. Oh yeah, she died in a house fire. Okay, moving on. But not. Wow. So to piggyback on what you just said, Skyler, that's important to note about the era of great players. To take it to another level, to our knowledge at least, we don't have to deal with the what if, the PED, the steroid, this isn't real. This is all legitimate. It's above board. The thing that I remember it breaking my heart was when A-Rod got popped for steroids. And it wasn't because I liked A-Rod. It was because it was this realization that everyone was doing it. We kind of already knew that at a certain point too, with the McGuires, the Sosas, Cansecos, and Canseco wrote a couple books where he outed a couple people for their PED use. We knew about Balco, but it was like, okay, that was guys that were in their 30s during the 90s. And then we got a guy in his mid 20s who's the best player in the game doing it. And it was this just such a deflating moment that I think that might have gone down in 2007 or at the beginning of 2008. And I think that was a year that I did not go to a single game in 2008 because I was just like heartbroken about baseball and that kind of realization. But we don't have to deal with that right now. Our guys may be getting some interesting procedures got done over in Europe and, blood transfusion type thing. I don't know. But I think we're at least in agreement now too that Major League Baseball is also okay with some of those things. So in general, yeah, it's a great time that we get to see Shohei Ohtani, who's, one of the top 20 pitchers in the game and amongst easily the top 5, if not just the best hitter in the game, doing it at the same time. So, and you know what? And this is going to get some people upset that he's with the right team, because if he's with another team, is he able to pull off some of the things he's been able to pull off? We'll see what happens in his future going forward. But if he starts playing right field and freeing up the DH spot for the Dodgers, because the Dodgers have figured out a way to shift him just so. Maybe they go with 4 outfielders, something crazy like that, to make it easy on him. And you say, shoot, okay, well, we're able to see the best version of arguably the best player of all time. So I think that's a good thing to be thankful for. Evan, you can change the subject too if you like, since I just said something nice about the Dodgers.
I actually did have one that I was going to save before, just to pivot things back to the Rockies.
Okay.
I am thankful that we are at a time right now where we get to talk again about the exploits of Troy Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez, who are on the Hall of Fame ballot now. Skyler and I talked about this a little bit on our show that went up this week, but even if the both of them are incredibly unlikely to be in the Hall of Fame, it brings back the conversation about just how fun and exciting these players were to watch. How, Cargo was Cargo and had one of the sweetest swings in baseball when he was on it. And Troy Tulowitzki, Skyler brought up, is like the archetype of the modern slugging shortstop. Your do-it-all, amazing fielder, amazing hitter shortstop. And in his prime, he was just so good. He was so good. And it's potentially a whole new generation of baseball fans who are going to be able to discover these guys based on the conversation around them. And also, old schlubs like us who get to relive those glory days where, Cargo hitting the walk-off and Tulo just being the absolute stud who should have won Rookie of the Year in 2007. But it's always tough, because I think we all know in our heart of hearts that there's not going to be another Rocky on the Hall of Fame ballot for a while who has any chance of getting in. And Troy Tulowitzki and Carlos. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at one of the comments. It's just
Oscar,
shut up.
Oscar, what you are, dare I say, a real grouch. I don't know. Why? No.
Like, I'm just going through this whole heartfelt thing of, these guys, just shut up.
Honestly, I think that is one of the biggest things to be thankful for right now, because again, in the Rockies world, in the Rockies community, we talk about these players, we bring them up, and we never necessarily go on a full tangent where we say, hey, do you remember this guy? Because it's like we mention these players all the time, and there's a good chance if you're listening to the Rockies Insider, you're listening to Affected by Altitude, you're listening to Blake Street Banter, you already know. You're preaching to the choir. So we don't really get that opportunity. So right now, for both Troy Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez together too, that's a beautiful thing. But to be on the class of 2025 Hall of Fame ballot, it is now bringing these guys on a national stage in a way in which, again, during the season, we all bring these players up. Do you remember this moment? This was one of my all-time favorites. God, this guy reminds me of Tulo. Or, as you did discuss on last week's Affected by Altitude, the 2 players that are in the Rockies organization right now that worked with Troy Tulowitzki. I recommend everybody to go check that out. But now, because it's on a national basis right now, and because people are talking about it all around the country, the greatest players, Fangraphs are writing up these guys, it gives a little bit more legitimacy to our memories and to our hearts. And you're right, that is a wonderful thing to see. And every morning you wake up and there's a new article maybe written by somebody else going, all right, look, we're talking about Tulo, and it's very relevant to not just Rockies fans, but to baseball fans.
I know that I am a homer, but if I had a Hall of Fame ballot, in my mind, Tulo was on it, because I think of it as the Terrell Davis sort of rule. Terrell Davis had, for the Denver Broncos, had a short season due to injuries, due to his migraine issues, due to a bunch of things. But his prime, that bright flash, was so bright, and it's the same for Tulo, where those couple years of his prime were absolutely incredible. And had he not had to deal with so many injuries in his later career, he's absolutely on a Hall of Fame trajectory where, barely playing in like multiple seasons of his career, and he still put up, 44 plus wins above replacement. And that's why I argue, like, I can comfortably put Tulo on my ballot if I had a ballot. I'm not so much of a homer that I would put Cargo on my ballot, because Cargo, I love him, but he's just not. And it's going to be the same with Charlie Blackmon. Charlie Blackmon is just not a Hall of Famer, and that's okay. But for Tulo, and I argue that sometimes baseball should take a little bit more of a look at stuff like that. But then again, other sports need to do that too. Like, it is Sterling Sharp should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not. But anyway, that whole different story. But man, Tulo was so good.
Yeah,
I love Tulo.
And I don't think I mentioned this before, and now's a good time on the Rockies Insider podcast, but Troy Tulowitzki was announced just last week. He's going to be a part of the class of 2025 Colorado Sports Hall of Fame. Not a ton of Rockies in that Colorado Sports Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
The first of which, Andres Galarraga. Another reason why he is a player, as you mentioned, Evan. You go back and look and say, we might have to give more consideration to that guy. And over 50% of the players in the Baseball Hall of Fame, a large majority, got in through veterans committees. They did not get in through the typical means of what we're talking about right now. You get on a ballot, you try to get 5%, you try to get on your first ballot, you try to get 100%, which I don't think we're ever going to see ever again. But you have an opportunity to stick around, get in through the Writers Association, but there are other means to do that. Galarraga, it would have to be that way. And I still don't think Troy Tulowitzki will ever be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You are giving me pause, Evan, to think about the fact that, again, and I've said this before when I was talking with Manny Randau a couple weeks ago. I'll have him on again during the offseason about what it means to be a Hall of Famer has changed drastically in such a short amount of time, where as long as you approached 300 wins, if you got 300 wins, you were in, you were a lock. But if you could even get to 250, you could squint and say, yeah, this guy's, you know what? Yeah, let's put him in the Hall of Fame. If you were to get 250 wins now in this era, you are head and shoulders, the greatest pitcher of this generation. 200 wins is now the new benchmark. So I think there's a lot of those things where we're just never going to see players have that longevity. And there's only a few amount of guys that when they are active, you say, hey, future Hall of Famer. It's almost like, you need to do a Google search and go to the Wayback Machine and say, how many articles included future Hall of Famer Troy Tulowitzki, or how many articles said, hey, who amongst active players has a decent shot? Hey, he's got a long way to go, Tulo, but we're going to at least put him on that list. He was a guy who was on those lists. Cargo, not as much. But, that is something that, again, we'll see over the course of time. If Tulo maybe gets that consideration 25, 50 years, when people look back and say, shoot, you know what? He should have won the Rookie of the Year award. He was a catalyst for that 2007 club that went to the World Series. Maybe it is the only Rockies team that goes to the World Series. So in 50 years' time, they're looking to try to get some more Colorado players in there. Troy Tulowitzki maybe gets in. We'll see.
This is also another reason why the Rockies need a team Hall of Fame / Ring of Honor / whatever. Get it done, please. Like, there are so many amazing Rockies guys that no way Hall of Famer, but would be in the team Hall of Fame. Andres Galarraga, Troy Tulowitzki, all these guys should be, part of the Purple Jacket Club or whatever, but it's just something that hasn't been done yet.
No, yeah, you don't have to convince me. You and me, we'll be on the board of directors for that, because that definitely needs to happen. Rockies Insider here with Evan Lang, Skyler, Timmins of Affected by Altitude and Purple Row, talking about what we're thankful for. And I think if we're looking at the 2024 and 2025 roster, the top of that list has to be Ezequiel Tovar and Brenton Doyle. Both those guys taking major steps forward in 2024. Both are finalists for the All MLB team. Ezequiel Tovar wins the Gold Glove Award, even gets a couple MVP votes down ballot. and you start to look and say, okay, maybe these are two corner posts for the Rockies to build around, where even if they just continue to contribute at this level, that gives them a foundation that they really haven't had since 2020. I mean, am I forgetting somebody else in 2021 besides Trevor Story? Who else was beside him that really could have been, corner posts for the Rockies? So even if they're just able to stay consistent and be what they are, that is definitely something to feel good about going into next season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of, we'd mentioned it before, like Evan talked about with the minor league system. There's pieces in place, and you got a foundational guys like Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, who we just got done talking about, Troy Tulowitzki, Carlos Gonzalez. Those guys were foundational pieces in like 2009 and 2010. And if the Rockies had been able to build upon them even more so, the team could have been much better through the 2010s. But these are foundational pieces you can build upon. They're still young. They're still developing. There's still things they could improve about their game to take it to the next level. And so it's a very exciting thing to have them. And then they lay the foundation for other guys that could come up. An Adiel Amador, a Charlie Condon, a Zach Veen, bunch of guys that are on their way. A Kyle Karros at third base. There's options coming up, and you have foundational pieces. You can see the inklings of what could be. That's something very, very to be thankful for.
It's very nice that I can have a dream prospect team for the future of this organization and not have it all be current prospects. Like, I can pencil in Ezekiel Tovar as the starting shortstop for quite a ways to come. I can say Brenton Doyle is going to be the center fielder. So you only have a couple different positions. You don't have as many different positions you need to worry about. So I can look at a thing and go, all right, here's my lineup that I am envisioning, and it's built around these guys, and other guys I think we can build around. So I that always makes me happy. Instead of having to do, we got to tear this MFer down completely. We don't. There's, there is some tearing down to do. I don't think, delude ourselves with that. But amidst the ashes are the sparks of the phoenix that could rise. I was doing a lot of hand motions there that you can't see because it's not captured by the framing.
Yeah, and if you did try to get your hands in, you would just look like Mr. Burns there. No, you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's you can say the 2028 roster for the Rockies, which again, none of us are going to be alive then because that's just crazy. There's going to be flying cars, all that good stuff. But I know it's 2020. It's about to be 2025. Like, that's a year none of us ever thought it was a real year. But 2028 will be a real year, and Tovar and Doyle will be there.
Mm-hmm. It's nice.
For those curious, it would be Doyle in center. I want Zach Veen in left and maybe Robert Kalaz in right. And then from third around to first, give me Karros, Tovar, Amador, maybe Tolia, but also Charlie Condon. Behind the plate, Drew Romo. Starting pitcher, Chase Dollander, Sean Sullivan.
Wow, two starting pitchers?
And Carson Palmquist.
All right, 3 pitchers in your rotation? Okay, see, so you're saying the analytic department creates a way in which you're able to use 3 pitch. How does that work? I don't know. It's the future. It's 2028.
I mean, those are just the new guys. Like, you're killing me, Smalls.
Evan, come on, dude.
Also, Zach Agnos, closer of the future.
And the only guy in the bullpen, too. No, I'm kidding.
The whole bullpen. He comes in the 6th, and he does not come out until it's done.
All those starting pitchers are throwing 9 complete innings every time.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you don't even need a bullpen.
The nicknames for these guys, soup arm, or, I don't know what you'd call them. Rubber elbow Agnos does not roll off the tongue. Not a great nickname, but
it's a good thing it's not 1933.
Rubber
arm McGillicuddy on the mound, and he takes his windup, and it's a whopping 72 miles per hour on that fastball.
You guys are a trip. Yeah, Tovar and Doyle are huge for feeling good this off season. And one of the other things I wrote down as far as what I'm grateful for and thankful for, and this is something where, again, we're getting to that part of the off season where you look back on the season a little bit more so than you did as soon as it ended in October. But Charlie Blackmon, like, that was such a whirlwind for that final week. And to think that, for the first time since 2011, he's not going to be on that opening day roster. And the first time since 2010, he's not even going to be on the 40-man roster is just wild to think. So, don't be sad that it's over. Be happy and smile because it happened, because Charlie Blackmon absolutely happened. And as you mentioned recently there, Evan, he's a guy that will be on a Hall of Fame ballot. Probably won't get in, but he'll be on a ballot. And in 6 years' time, we'll be celebrating Charlie Blackmon when we talk about the class of 2030 and the new 2030 ballot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charlie Blackmon's that good one to remember, because he encapsulates so much of the old Rockies, just those old memories we have, some of the Todd Helton era, the Tulowitzkis and everything, and just his loyalty to the team and what he meant to Colorado baseball. Fan favorite, everybody loved Chuck, and what a great thing we were able to witness his career.
Yeah, and us old heads over here, it's now the third time basically that we've gone through this transition of everybody's favorite player, the primary face of the franchise, is gone, is done. I would argue when Larry Walker was traded to the Cardinals and then retired, and you have Todd Helton's retirement, and now you have Charlie Blackmon's retirement, really marking the ends of individual eras of Rockies baseball. But there's another era that is coming.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about that too, as you said, with thirds. You could maybe even make the case that the era ended in like 1999, right? When Galarraga was already off the team for a year, Bichette was traded, Castillo was traded. So it was like the Blake Street Bombers were truly over. And then, all right, well, we still have Walker. So it totally didn't seem like it was over. But you're right. Like there's definitely something to that, despite all of those Blake Street Bombers not being career Rockies. They were, how would I phrase that? They were career Rockies players, because that was the only history the Rockies had, were those guys.
They're a pillar in the pantheon of Rockies baseball, and especially guys like Ellis Burks, who in terms of his general career, his time with the Rockies was kind of a blip. And I often call him the forgotten Blake Street Bomber, because he's the one that people tend to forget about. But I remember Ellis Burks. I love Ellis Burks.
Ellis Burks' knees did not love Ellis Burks, though.
That is also true.
That's why he was forgotten so much.
There's a lot of guys whose knees were not particularly happy with them. Dante Bichette being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if Coors Field did have AstroTurf. Like, no, they would.
Somebody'd be dead.
I mean, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but I mean, they would have bulldozed that ballpark at a certain point. There would have been so many lawsuits. I think Frank Azar, it would have been called the Frank Azar Field at that point, because there would have been so many lawsuits.
It's going to be like that scene in The Natural where the guy just runs through the outfield wall and dies, and then it never gets mentioned or brought up again.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really weird part of that movie.
Just knees imploding, or guys in the outfield wearing the knee braces like Stone Cold Steve Austin, just on the outside of their pants, because just running on concrete, and it would have been rough. Although Bretton Doyle, to be honest, he would have been able to survive it. That concrete would have had so many cracks, it would have looked like a driveway in Denver, like the way he goes about and how hard he plays.
That outfield wall remembers Bretton Doyle.
It's true. It's true. Here's something that, you guys might laugh at, but I'm thankful for it. So that's that. You know what? Let's give a shout out to the homie Johnny Lopez. Loved and respect for Mr. Helton. Yeah, man. Like, again, that was still this year. Like, I forget that was this summer. Helton going into the Hall of Fame. Like, that's still a recent core memory. That's something on the list. That got an episode coming up at some point this offseason, like the definitive Rockies watch list. Like, what can you do to kill time? I know Helton was on the Road to Cooperstown podcast That was really good. Just go back and watch that entire ceremony. Helton leads off for the first time in his career, doing the first speech, panning the audience for other Rockies and friends of Helton and all that. Like that's a good way to spend the off season. That's not something you've done multiple times, and maybe you didn't even get a chance to absorb that in the summer, the first time that it actually happened. So, Johnny, great point. But in all seriousness, I am thankful, guys, for my Subaru. I am. It has good gas mileage. It's great in the snow, and maybe most importantly, no one wants to steal it, and that's easy to ignore for some people. But my Subaru, very thankful for it.
Jeff Houston probably loves it too.
I don't want to talk about Subarus. I'm having some difficulties with mine right now.
No, take it back. Come on.
I don't know.
Man, that's rough. Now is not a good time. I would also say something I'm thankful for is purple. The color purple. Just the color, right? It's wild to think that with the City Connects that came out, all these teams rebranding from scratch, only 2 teams incorporated a little bit of purple. The Rays, they kind of already had some, so there was some touch in there. The Mets had a little bit of purple in their all gray City Connect uniform, but it's wild to think that still no team can make any claim to the color purple, and even green. Think about that. The Rays had a little bit of green in their belt. The Rockies, stake ownership to green in many ways. Yeah, I know the A's are still out there, but nevertheless, like green, like these colors are one of the things that make the Rockies the most unique. You would hope championships will be the thing that makes the Rockies unique, but nevertheless, purple and green, particularly purple. You know what? It's something we take for granted. That's definitely something that makes Rockies fans and rooting for this team, very unique.
Man, I'm going to miss that City Connect.
Yeah, that's what I was going to piggyback off of. Is I'm thankful for the City Connect that we're going to be losing now, because I like this though. But I just recently got this hoodie that I'm wearing in the video version, the City Connect one. It was on sale for like $30, so I was like, heck yeah, baby! Because obviously probably going on clearance. But I really like this uniform, and I'll be sad to see it go. Excited to see what they do next with it. But yeah, the Rockies, just in general, piggyback off what you said, Patrick. I'm just thankful for the Rockies uniform set, because the purple unis, classic, a good look. The white pinstripes, a classic, nice look with the pinstripes. The road grays, I'm kind of indifferent on. They're still nice. They're still nice, but I miss the purple pinstripe ones on the road, because that's what I grew up thinking about.
Yes,
but of course we all miss the black vests.
I also miss wearing the pinstripe pants with the alternates.
Yeah. It's one of those things where your brain tells you that you like it, but your brain also knows, yeah, but that probably looked bad back in the day in a lot of different ways. But now looking back on it fondly, and that is kind of the beauty of, the Rockies. They did pattern their logo and their uniforms after the New York Yankees, just a kind of a classic look, and they've stayed that way. And through periods in which you see other teams getting rebranding and having a lot of fun and doing those things. The fun thing that the Rockies have going for them is that when they do get good again, similar to, the Padres did this when they went back to yellow and brown, and there are other teams that have sort of saved away in their closet iconic looks for when they got good again. That when that time comes for the Rockies, they won't just come up with a completely new rebrand. They're going to stick with the interlocking CR. They're going to stick with the purple pinstripes. But to capitalize on that success and that resurgence, the black vest have got to be coming back. That has to be in the cards.
Or just a black jersey in general type of thing.
No, I need my black vests back. And you know what? As punishment for taking them away to begin with, they've got to bring back the white vests too, because that's one that's really grown on me since they got rid of them. Is I'll look back and go, man, you know what? Those were really underrated.
I think there's going to be a resurgence of vests. Like right now, I don't think there's any in baseball, and I've had some conversations with folks in the game about vests, and obviously everything with Fanatics and the issues with the uniforms last year and whatnot, there's no place to put an advertiser patch, or if someone passes away, having that player's number. But I think there's a workaround. You just make a
Oh
MLB
no, what a
authentic
nightmare. No
undershirt.
place for an ad patch.
Well, again, you can implement the official undershirt of MLB, where again, it's just what goes on underneath. Hopefully, it's not something as atrocious as they do the stitched in sleeve, where they stitch in a sleeve into a vest. I think we can all remember having that look at one point and thinking it looked nice, whether it was like a denim jacket with like plaid sleeves, and you're like, oh no, it's two different things. No, they're stitched in. It doesn't work. So I think eventually Nike, not when they run out of ideas, but that is an idea waiting to happen. Just like Color Rush, just like what the NBA is doing with their different jerseys. It will be all 30 teams over a period of time, or maybe even all in one year. Boom, vests. And maybe the black vest comes out at that point, or they come up with something new and totally different. But I wouldn't rule it out just because of the fact that there is no place for an advertiser patch.
All right, I got a fun one that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for eBay, and it's not the reason why you think. It is because one of my favorite things to do is just think up an obscure baseball player, an obscure Rockies player, and just go on to the old electronic bay and see, well, what comes up when I type this guy's name in. And it has led me to some fascinating things. So one of you give me just a random Rocky.
Brad Andrus. He was a coach.
I can tell you that because I've already seen it. There's a jersey of his on eBay.
We talked about this. We were texting about this, but this is actually a perfect lead in. Go ahead.
But it's so much. I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird me thing, but I just have a lot of fun just scrolling through and being like, huh, that's neat. Oh, it's a game used bat by Gabe White or something like that.
A left-handed relief pitcher, which makes it
a left-handed relief pitcher who could hit.
He had one of the best seasons of a reliever in Rockies history. Legitimately, it might have been like a 4-WAR season, which is crazy. Yeah, eBay can definitely be fun for, especially in the off season, to just look at what kind of random things are out there. I think there is from the 2007 World Series, like an umpire's jacket that's like autographed by the guy who was the umpire. So that is an interesting piece of memorabilia. And it's funny you brought this up. I probably was going to mention it on a show a different day, but if you're over on the social medias at Patrick D. Lyons and at Rockies Insider, but the new thing that Fanatics has done with Topps is starting in 2023, which means Ezequiel Tovar, he's not going to be a part of this, unfortunately. But any player who made their debut 2023 or after, they had that MLB debut patch on their sleeve. And after they got into the game, clubhouse folks came in, lifted that off. They sent it to Fanatics and to Topps. They put it on a card. The player signed it, 1 of 1 MLB debut patch. And right now, at the time of recording, because it is a best offer. So I don't know if these players, if they know about it, they found out, they might go in and put a bid, because we've seen a lot of players going out there and trying to buy their cards back. 2 Rockies, worlds apart. One, Connor Kaiser, who was it just 2 games or was it 3? I know it was
very few.
It was not. Yeah, it was not many.
It was, and the only reason was because Ezequiel Tovar was having a baby. He was on the paternity list, and so they needed a shortstop. But still, $2,000 or best offer. That would be that's a cool thing to have in your collection. And then the other one is Hunter Goodman, also $2,000. Strangely enough. Again, signed with the patch from his first game, August 27th, 2023 at Camden Yards, goes 2 for 4 with an RBI, makes the final out, line drive right back to him over at first base. You really can't write it up any better for a debut. So you're right. eBay can definitely lead you down some rabbit holes, and you can have some fun looking up some random items.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want, maybe we shouldn't give away some of the searches you and I have done, because then I've had things like in my watch list for like 5 years that are still listed. It was like, make an offer. And I'm like, do I really need this Bend Rockies bobblehead that looks like one of the old 1950s bobbleheads?
I mean, yes, you do.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
The same reason why I need, I've
He's looking around his apartment trying to figure out.
I'm trying to decide what the best thing that I've gotten on eBay that I would say is, and I would say it is a bat autographed by the 1993 inaugural Rockies, but it is the bat of an absolute, in the grand scheme of things, nobody in Rockies history.
Mo Sanford.
That's the one.
That's it. I don't know if that was a guess or I just remembered that story.
I think we've talked about it before, but Mo Sanford was a relief pitcher on the 99 Rockies or 93 Rockies who only appeared in 11 games. And
careful.
He
careful.
Had like
You're stepping into every Rocky ever territory right now. Go ahead.
He had like 10 at bats or something.
Wow.
And that was the only year that he played for the Rockies. And it was one of just 3 seasons where he played in the big leagues at all. And it's just such an obscure, weird thing.
So if we're learning anything about Evan today, instead of a buy me a cup of coffee, one of those little buttons to have on your social media page, it should be buy me a game used bat of an obscure Rockies reliever. Like, I think if there's not a button for that, I mean, I think that becomes a little passion project we work on.
Sure. Works for me.
Yeah.
Skyler, you got anything else you are grateful for? Thankful?
Yeah, I was just going to say kind of Rockies TV for this past year. And it kind of fits into like just this accessibility with the game. I know there's a lot of stuff with like blackouts and whatnot, but here in Colorado, MLB kind of helped with that with Rockies TV. And, it turned out to be a huge blessing and something I was thankful for this year because my dad's had a bunch of health stuff that started back in May with his liver. And, it turned out it's been cancer in his liver. And so we've been dealing with that, but a lot through those summer months where he's just kind of been confined at home, not able to go back to work or anything. He's had the Rockies there on TV, able to tune in and watch that every night. He's watching it, or I'd be out there watching it with him, or I'd be here in my room working on something, and then could go out there and we'd make comments about the game. Like, man, they really blew it tonight. That was a pretty common one. So I was just thankful for that, and it was something I could share with my brother too. He could kind of win in on the same subscription because MLB hasn't cracked down on that yet. Hopefully, he never does. But so it was able to just have this easily accessible way for us to watch one of our favorite things and have something to bond over. So I am thankful for it to be able to just have that ability to consume the game that I love.
Yeah. Other than, not getting the clubhouse shows and just things in the off hours and those reruns, you're right. You're getting a lot more accessibility, shorter pre and post game shows, but nevertheless, the Rockies TV situation really didn't impact the viewing audience in a negative way. It was maybe more positive than anything else.
I loved Rockies TV. Proud to be an early adopter of that because just being able to click of a button, just go, all right, Rockies time, boop, and we're good. Versus, if you were in Skyler's situation where it's much harder to get it on TV, or in other people's situations where you want to maybe, not have to pay for cable anymore, but still watch the Rockies, or even just an ease of access thing where, if you're sitting on a park bench waiting for somebody, you pull up your phone and okay, here's Rockies.
We need to get a meme of Forrest Gump sitting on that bench. That was immediately what I thought of. Forrest Gump, he's not giving chocolate to anybody. He's not being sociable. He's just watching his Rockies TVs waiting for that bus.
Mama always said, life is like the Colorado Rockies. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whatever happens, that's baseball.
Yeah. Like Bud Black and Mama used to say, that's baseball. Yeah. Rapid fire, a couple things before we get out of here. Rockies Fan Fest coming back. Thankfully that is back. That is a wonderful thing to be thankful for. Coors Field in general, just to have a baseball mecca to go to. I still think, man, if they could only figure out a way, and maybe they have. I think it might be an insurance thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if the rooftop was open in the wintertime. Come on, just weekends. You wouldn't just go up there to buy an overpriced beer. Maybe it's not even as much as it would be during a game, but to see a little sunset, to get back at the ballpark, like that would be a pretty nice thing if something like that could get going.
Howdy.
Yeah. Anything else you guys got before we get out of here and do our plugs?
I'm thankful for Bud Black and
Okay.
him teaching us how much we hate gritty veterans.
And how much we hate whatever happens that's baseball.
But really, it's us raising our expectations of, like, if anything, Bud Black's made me care about prospects more because the alternative isn't always the best.
It's true.
I am thankful for. This is going to sound schmaltzy. Going back to Coors Field, I am thankful for a lot of the staff at that ballpark.
Good call.
The folks up at the rooftop bar up at Silver Bullet, some of the best service I've had literally anywhere. There's a gentleman up there who tends bar who has always been extremely good to me when I'm up there. The folks at the Rockies Authentic booth over in the ballpark, always really, really kind and really, really grateful. The ushers, for the most part, are great. Like, Coors Field is such a darn good baseball experience, even on the worst of Rockies losses. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the people who helped make that happen. And I'm also thankful for Brenton Doyle, whom I think we should lock down to a long-term contract.
No, you bring up a good one there about the staff that works for the Rockies, because we know they're loyal. They're definitely a family, a community like that. So they always have good people. And hey, if they are number one on Zach Hampel's board of people that have given him the worst ballpark experience. I think in a way that's a nice thing. That's bragging.
That ain't nothing right there.
Yeah.
I
That's something to
know.
hang your hat on.
That is impressive. He's had gotten the business from some people, but I think the Coors Field, and that would be the last one. You go, where are people going to be the nicest? Oh, Coors Field. They'd be like, Zach Campbell. He found a way to sneak down on the field, and he's shagging fly balls, and maybe he's even a late defensive replacement for somebody in the 8th or 9th inning, and you're like, they're very nice in Colorado. No, it was the opposite, man. If you're knocking kids over or bumping into some folks that are disabled or elderly people, you're going to get sassed by someone named Larry or something.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what the usher's name was, but he's someone we all aspire to be. As are you, Skyler. As are you, Evan. Skyler, go ahead and plug away. Let folks know where they can get all your stuff at.
Yeah, you can find me over on X, formerly known as Twitter. I think that's the legal way to say it. But at silent_crowd, you can also find me over at Blue Sky. That's S Timmins, Timmins 13.bsky.social. And then find me writing Wednesday Rock Piles at purplerow.com. And then writing stuff occasionally for fansfirstsports.com. Evan,
how about you, buddy?
So I'm actually making the decision to basically fully transition over to Blue Sky. So find me at evanlang27.bsky.social. More and more baseball people over on Blue Sky. It's really nice to see. It's sort of like the first of the major sports that's really fully embraced that platform, and I'm curious to see where it goes. You can find me on purplerow.com writing the Monday Rock Piles. Most recent one that came out this week was talking about Evan Justice and how he dominated at the Arizona Fall League. And then you can also find our podcast stuff over on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, home of Affected by Altitude and Every Rocky Ever, on your major podcasting platforms, iTunes and Google and Spotify and all that stuff, but also on social media on all platforms at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That is at ROCKY MTN Rooftop.
Definitely gets the Rocky Insider stamp of approval. Everything that these guys are doing, thumbs up on that. You can find me on all the socials. https://x.com/Patrick D. Lyons. This Blue Sky business is just, it's crazy. But I'm on Blue Sky too, though, because, hey, like you said, it's where the baseball people go. TikTok, you name it, at Patrick D. Lyons or at Patrick D. Lyons MLB. Gentlemen.
Dance.
What's that?
Do a TikTok
Yeah, when you gonna start
dance.
doing the TikTok dances while you're doing
Prove
Rockies,
to
man.
us that you're on TikTok. Do a TikTok dance.
Don't think I haven't thought of it, but it only lasts for 2 seconds, which is probably 2 seconds longer than it should. But I'm like, all right, let's see if I can get the guys in the press box, if we can do something when we're down on the field. And it's like, they're not going to buy in. Like if I really need to pull some strings and ask for some favors, it's not going to be for a dumb TikTok dance.
If you can get Thomas to floss on camera,
oh,
I will give you $100.
That could happen. I don't know if you guys know how great of a personality Thomas Harding has, but he is generally just an awesome human being. He would do that. I'll take that bet. I will take that one. And I'll take all the help I can get this offseason. So I'll have you guys back on plenty more times. Appreciate you coming on, giving me this momentum. But as I like to say, momentum, shoot, it's only as good as your next podcast. So I will talk to you then.